Good evening, everybody, to all my friends over in Europe. Kind of weird saying that because it's the morning for me, but I thought I'd switch it up. I have a really interesting video for you guys. I want to test out the quickest possible training methods in Oldschool Runescape. Now, I'm not going to be testing out each of the meta training methods, but more so the training methods that are not really practical to do for long periods of time. Yes, it is possible to reach really high experience rates, but they're either really click intensive, prohibitively expensive, or for other reasons just not well known. Hopefully we don't lose too much money on this, but if we do, don't forget to leave the video a like. Luckily, I can take those video likes right to the bank and offset my costs. Anyway, let's get started. Now, before I jump into the video today, I want to talk to you guys about something I think is actually pretty cool. Now, that is an up-and-coming browser by the name of OperaGX, and they are sponsoring today's video. OperaGX is the only browser that is actually specifically built for PC gamers, and they have a lot of features that I've never seen on any other browser before. Now, the first thing you'll notice is everything is dark and calm, the colors are nice, and is really easy on the eyes. That said though, if things are still not dark enough for you, they do have a Force Dark Pages feature that will dim any page. One of my personal favorite features is the GX control, which actually allows you to control your RAM and CPU usage. For people like me who have like 1,000 tabs opened at once, seriously, I think I have a problem. OperaGX also includes direct integration for Twitch. Once logged in, it will display anyone who's currently live, which I find really convenient, as well as they have direct integrations for Discord, which just pops out, Facebook, and pretty much any other messenger you can think of. They also have a news area called GX Corner that will keep you up to date on any new game releases, and they also show you some of the best discounts that are currently running on some of your favorite games. OperaGX is actually pretty cool, and they are trying out a ton of new things. I would highly recommend going and checking them out with the link in my description. It is totally free to use, so there's nothing really to lose. And thanks again to OperaGX for sponsoring today's video. Now, the first method we have here is creating eternal boots. Now, you might have noticed in the background, I have kind of been avoiding showing my Grand Exchange, like don't worry about it. That was because I was buying eternal crystals. Now, this actually is the best and quickest rune crafting training method in the entire game, but there's some huge caveats. For one, the eternal crystals are very slow to buy, and they have a buying limit of 15, which means at best you can only do maybe 20 or 30 of these a day. Also, of course, they are extremely expensive. You could theoretically do this with the Primordial and the Begasian, but they're like 10 times more expensive than this. So this method can be expensive, can be very slow to obtain, but once you actually get the materials, you can get one of the best rune crafting training methods, along with magic. Now, for every boot you make, you're going to get 200 magic and rune crafting experience, which does add up very quickly. Now, unfortunately, you do have to make the boots one at a time. There's no make all feature for this. But even though I wasn't doing this perfectly efficiently, I could definitely be doing it a bit quicker. I'm still getting experience rates of around 250k rune crafting experience and magic experience, which is totally insane. So we just made it through all of the boots, and I'm getting experience rates up to 275k per hour. Obviously, you could do a bit better than that, or a lot worse. Now, you can start using this method at level 60 rune crafting and magic, but before you get too excited here, to get all the way to 99 from 60 would take 65,000 eternal crystals, which for all intents and purposes would be pretty well impossible to get. Let's say you're able to obtain 30 eternal crystals a day, which I think already is a little bit unrealistic. It would take you around 2,100 days just to acquire all of the eternal crystals. Now, let's also not forget to mention the 162 bill bankroll that you would need to be able to buy all these items at once. Obviously, this is just a fun method, but it could be a decent way of getting passive rune crafting experience over a long period of time. Now, I kind of lucked out here because eternal boots actually spiked up in price. So let's go see how much money we'll actually make on this. Now, due to a very sudden price increase, we're actually going to make a decent amount of money on this. We're going to get a margin of around 300k per boot, which means on all of them we actually netted 9.7 mil in profit. A little unfortunate that I didn't manage to make more of those. Now, that said though, I tried doing this a couple months ago and ended up losing about 100k per boot, so it definitely can swing either way. So my recommendation, if you're going to try this, don't hold on to your items too long. Now, the next method I want to try here is one that is extremely expensive but has gotten a little bit cheaper as of late, and that is making enhanced crystal keys. This is actually one of the quickest crafting and smithing combo training methods, There are technically quicker ways to do this by using some of the other crystal armor pieces, but at that point it just becomes way too unrealistically expensive that I don't think anyone would really do it. Now for this method to work, you do need access to crystal shards, and the most cost-effective way to get them right now is by buying the teleport crystals, coming over here to Amrod, and breaking them down into crystal shards. Now right now the enhanced crystal teleport seed is the most cost-effective, although that can change depending on prices. So we're going to go ahead and destroy all these and get 2,250 crystal shards back. Now alternatively, a really good way to get crystal shards is just by farming, is just to obtain them passively. At that point you won't be spending as much money, but you won't be able to get them very quickly either. Now essentially the way this method works is you take crystal shards, 10 of them, and you attach them to a crystal key. Now to do this you do need level 80 smithing and crafting, so it's a kind of higher level method, but the experience per hour you're going to get here is really insane. So it's very simple. You're just going to come down here to the Southern Prifddinas Bank. From here you're going to take out an inventory of crystal keys as well as your stack of crystal shards. Come down here to the singing bowl, click on all, make all the keys, and look at that, a 13,500 XP drop in both crafting and smithing. So we're getting 27,000 experience per run, which is kind of bonkers. Now essentially the way you make your money back here is by opening up the enhanced crystal chest. Now by no means are you going to make back all of your money, but it will help offset the cost by a fair bit. Right now we're already up to 2.4 mil experience per hour in each skill, which is close to 5 mil per hour. This is more total experience per hour than dragon darts unless you are some sort of machine. And really I think the only other method in the game that is this quick is by making crystal bodies or maybe the crystal legs. So after a couple inventory of keys, it looks like we're getting around 2.5 mil per hour smithing experience and crafting experience, so around 5 to 6 mil per hour total experience is what this method could get to. Keep in mind though, you do need to open up the keys yourself, which means for every inventory you do, you need to tag on an extra couple minutes. Now if you are interested in learning on average how much money you get back from the crystal keys, Mrnosleep just uploaded a massive loot video from it, which I'll leave a link in the description for. I would recommend checking that out. Now in the end, how much exactly does this method cost, and would you consider doing it? Now an enhanced crystal key costs on average around 175,000 to make. Around 150,000 just in crystal shards, and then an additional 25,000 for the crystal key. So that is a pretty big investment for a single key, but you are going to get some money back. The average loot that is listed on the wiki is around 50,000 GP in loot. However, on top of that, you're also going to get crystal shards back. You're going to get on average around 2.8 crystal shards back per key, which actually has a value of around 40,000 GP. And it will actually even get cheaper than that because the shards you get back from your crystal keys will also produce shards. I'm sure somebody who's better at math can figure that out for me. Now with all of that said, that boils down to a GP to XP of both of the skills combined of around 70 to 80. So it is definitely one of the most expensive trading methods in the game, but also one of the quickest. Now next up here, we're going to try out the quickest magic training method in the entire game, or at least as far as I'm aware. If there's something quicker, let me know. Now that is enchanting Onyx bolts. Now if you know how to do this correctly, you can get upwards of 500k to 600k per hour, but it does require one tick in it. Now in most cases, this is notably quicker than ice barraging. Normally barraging maniacal monkeys can get you up to 350k, maybe up to 400k if you have alt, but this will be much quicker and actually cheaper. That said though, there are some big drawbacks. One is you are constrained by the buying limits, which you can go through in about 5 to 10 minutes. So unless you have a load of money and a load of time, you're not going to be doing this for a substantial amount of time. And of course, because you are using Onyx bolts, it's going to require a lot of upfront money. But actually overall, the GP to XP is very cheap. It's like 1.5 GP to XP. Now, like I said, to get the most out of this method, you do need to one ticket, but it's actually very simple. Now, I am still kind of new at this, so I'm using the metronome plugin on RuneLite. I find it very helpful, but essentially all you have to do is hold the spacebar and click on the enchant crossbow bolt every tick. With the metronome, it's very easy to get into a rhythm, and honestly, I only missed a couple ticks here and there. We bought 3,000 bolts just to test this out, and honestly, we'll probably go through those in about 3 minutes. I find the metronome very helpful because often there is just a little bit of world lag, or sometimes the ticks aren't perfectly spaced apart, and at that point it can throw off your rhythm, but the metronome will keep time regardless. You can see here we're blowing past 500k per hour right now, and I think we're actually going to get up to around 575k per hour at the top end, if you miss absolutely no ticks, you should be getting around 550k to 575k per hour. Obviously, you don't need to bank either, so this experience rate is pretty accurate, but I would say with the occasional mistake, 550k per hour is pretty doable. So I would say this is actually a fairly viable training method. One big drawback though is you're not going to be getting any hit point experience that you would normally get from barraging. And of course you do have to click a lot, but I think this is actually a pretty viable training method all the way from level 87, which is when you can start enchanting them, all the way to 99. Now next up here we have another really interesting smithing method. Now if you think this clip looks a little familiar, well, you got me guys. This one is actually from a couple months ago, but I thought it was worth reusing. Now, a little while ago, I spent the better part of 2 months buying draconic visages for the sole purpose of turning them into Dragonfire shields for experience. It is a very quick method once you have obtained all of the visages, but obviously that takes a while. Draconic visages have a buying limit of 5, which means you're going to be waiting a long time to get a largest quantity of them. I think I ended up buying 150 or something like that over the course of 2 months, and each one provides you with 2,000 smithing experience when you combine it together. Now to combine these together you do need level 90 smithing, and at the time I didn't actually have 90 smithing, so the experience rate you're seeing here could actually be a bit higher. But I would say if you're doing it fairly efficiently and already have 90 smithing, you can get around 1,000,000 experience per hour in smithing. And that's not to mention that you can sometimes even profit doing this method. Back in September, I think I did actually profit a bit of money on this, but similar to the Eternal Boots, it can easily swing either direction. And similar to the Eternal Boots, I would highly recommend, if you do this method, to do it like 5 or 10 at a time, sell them back, and repeat. But on paper, it really is a pretty incredible method. Around 1,000,000 experience per hour in smithing that can even be profitable, if not just break even, makes it an incredibly quick training method. Now next up here is probably the most common method on this list, but it still is one of the quickest. Now that is burying superior dragon bones in a POH. Now, if players do end up burying superior dragon bones, often they'll opt to do it in the wilderness, as it is pretty much literally half the cost. The difference in GP to XP is pretty significant, going from around 20 down to 10, which means going all the way to 99 will save you around 100 mil, which for most players is significant enough to, well, not bother with this. With that said though, to get the actual highest experience rate per hour, you do need to bury it in a POH because it's a much quicker run and you'll never be interrupted. Now, to get the highest experience rate, you do need to bury them manually, and really you can get higher than what I'm getting here. I'm capping out at around 1.3 mil per hour. You can get higher if you are really good at clicking, because the only limit really is your own endurance. With that said though, 1.3 mil per hour seems to be a sustainable rate, but still quite a lot of work. Now I actually would kind of like to do a follow-up video, so let me know if you know of any insanely quick training methods that maybe aren't that practical. I got a couple others I didn't include in today's video, and you know what, if people really like this video, maybe I'll go back and try crystal bodies and lose like 100 mil in like 5 minutes. But yeah, let me know of any of your inventive ideas. I'm always keen to try them.